There are 4 things that you can do on any blog article to make it instantly more readable and more efficient for your online business. Hi, I'm Hanne from Thrive Teams, and the other day I was doing some research and I found this blog article that was actually very interesting but very hard to read, and I was wondering why. And when I analyzed it, I noticed that there were 4 things that they could do to make this article much more efficient and much more enjoyable to read.
First of all, let's have a look at the article and let's see what they are doing really well. So this is the article, 17 best sales funnel examples. So as you can see, it's a list article and it has a lot of examples. And when we quickly scroll down, you can see that here we have like a first example, a lot of images, text. And this goes on for a very long time because there are like a lot of different examples, which is very valuable. This is good content. Like, let me just like very quickly scroll completely down. So this like still going on, still reading. So this is a massive blog post, right? Now, if you can see in the beginning, there is something very clever. So here they give an overview. So this allows people to immediately skip to the part that's interesting to them. So this is very helpful. And as you can see here, they also explain how they've broken down each example. And so they are using a repeatable pattern for each example. And that's something that's very smart to do in any blog post, because this will allow your readers to know immediately what they will get for each article. So they have the steps in the sales funnel, why it works, what makes it unique, and where it could be better. And indeed, if you look at this first example for Crazy Egg, you can see that they have here steps in the sales funnel, and then why it works, what makes it unique, and where it could be better. But as you might have noticed, this is also where the first problem arises. The first problem is visual hierarchy. We have one big title here, so the example 1, but then everything is exactly the same size. We do have some bolded text, why it works, but it doesn't stand out and it's not visually more important. This should be a bigger font. And if you look into the code, so let's just quickly open the inspector panel here. You can see that when you hover over the title, so this one, you can see here that this is an H2, so this is a heading, which is good. But when you go over this title, which is also a subheading, or which should be a subheading, this actually is just a bolded paragraph. And that's one of the first things that we can correct. So what I did here was I copied the text and the images on my own blog so that I could actually show you what this would look like if you correct this. Now, of course, we're not going to publish this article. The idea is not to copy this article, but it's just easier to show you how this would look like when it is actually finished with the changes. What I would do is go in and make this different titles actually heading 3. So that when we can actually scroll down, we can see that this becomes bigger. So I'm just going to do this for one example. Now you can already see that immediately why it works pops out and makes it more readable. Now, the second thing that we can change in this article is white space and separation. Because as you can see in this article, there are a lot of images, which is good because it breaks up the wall of text. But these images also have text on them. So as you can see here, for example, this is actually an example of the pricing, But because of the title that is part of the image, so the astonishing power of eye tracking technology without the high costs, this is actually not a title of the article. This is part of the image. But there is no separation that makes this clear that this is part of the image. And it makes it confusing when you're just simply skimming this article to understand what is part of the image. And so you don't really have to read it, you just have to look at it. And what is part of the actual text of the article that you want to read. A very simple way to correct this is to go to your images and to make sure that there is a border around the images. Now, to do so, you can click on the image, and you can either here where you see no style, you can actually apply a style. So you could choose, for example, the lifted style. And as you can see, this adds like this shadow around the image. Or in this case, I might actually choose for a framed one to make sure that the whole image has this little border around it. Or if you want to make this border like stand out even more, or maybe make it another color, you can here add no style and then go into the border options, go to solid, make this maybe 1 pixel, and then you can also change the color here, so make it maybe like a lighter gray. And now you can see that this image has the borders around it, so visually it is separated from the rest of the text. So let us quickly do that with the other images. And one more thing that we can do on these images to make sure that when people are just quickly scanning through the article is add a caption text on it, so that when people are drawn to an image, they immediately know what this image represents. So for example, in this pricing table, when you click on it and you go into the change image, when you select the pricing table, here you can add the caption. And so I would put something like step 3 pricing. This adds like this little text underneath the image. And if you want, you can change the appearance of this caption. So you could make this, for example, in a light gray to match the border and make the text white. So now they can really immediately see that this image is the step 3 of the pricing element. And that will make it visually even more separated from the rest of the text. Now, there is another problem with this article, and that is white space. So it is very important that the spacing between the elements is correct, because here, for example, you can see that everything is kind of crammed together, and it's not very clear what is the most important element in this list, and even the sublist is actually like in a bigger font than the main list. So it's just not very readable. I try to recreate it here, and you can like make sure that the margin, so usually if you use Thrive Content Builder, you will automatically have margins. Like I had to take them out to show you this example. But as you can see, just adding this white space makes it easier to read and makes it easier to understand what the actual steps in the funnel are. And here, so this would be, like I said, a heading 3. So now this is already much clearer. Once you fix the visual hierarchy and the white space and the separation of the elements, there is one more thing that you can do, and you have to try to do this on every article that you write. And it is to make sure that you give very clear takeaway actions or takeaway points for your reader. In this article, Matt is doing a very good job in breaking down the funnel, but he still leaves the reader hanging a little bit as to what they can actually take away from this. So what I would do to fix this is at the end, after each example, I would actually add a content box. And make it more like a gray one. And with the dark text. And I would make sure that after each example, I have this little box with key takeaways so that if people don't want to read everything in the article, they can only read the key takeaway boxes and they would get the most important information out of this article. And it would only take a few minutes to actually add this key takeaway boxes because the author already wrote the whole blog post, so he knows exactly what the key takeaway is. But instead of letting the reader make all the connections, he can actually make it easier and make the article even more valuable. So then when you have made this key takeaway box that you like, you can actually save it from here as a content template. You call it key takeaway. And now each time, after each example, I would add one of these boxes. So content templates, and here you can see key takeaways, and I would add this. And then there is a fourth element that we can add to this article to make it more efficient for your online business. So actually here you can see that after the introduction, Matt included something to check out the sales funnel blueprint. So I actually thought that this was an opt-in form, but it happens to go to a sales page. Now, what I would probably do is make this an opt-in form, but that's of course the choice of the author and of the website owner. But I would make sure that at the end of the article, I'm actually repeating this element. Because as you can see, this article is massive. When you scroll down, you're not gonna scroll back up again to click on this call to action. So you have to make sure that when people are finished reading the article and when they got a lot of value out of the content that you created, you want to have a call to action at that precise moment. And in this type of massive blog post, I would probably even have a call to action somewhere in the middle so that when people are convinced at that point of the value of the article, they are convinced that you can teach them more, they are convinced that they want to get more of your news, that they want to be informed when you have a new article, that they don't have to wait and that they don't have to go looking for an opt-in form, but that it's right there. Now, let me quickly show you what this would look like once we've made these changes. So here I just did 2 examples. So the one of Crazy Egg. But as you can see, we immediately see the different subheadings, so the steps in the sales funnel. And then the images are really separated from the rest of the blog post with captions that tell us what these images are about. And we have these key takeaway boxes that will help people get the most important information about this post.
Now I hope these tips will help you to make your blog posts better and more efficient for your business. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.